especially for tour guides, so many landmarks connected to the Bishop family. The whole area where Bank of America is, that's where Jane's home was. When they added on to the Banneker Douglas Museum, I was hired by the University of Maryland to write placards, because where they were excavating was Charity Bishop's former property, which was a former parsonage for St. Anne's. They gave money to St. Anne's for their parsonage. Her son, who had the tobacco shop, is somewhere very close to here within feet. And the grandson that we talked about, William Bishop, that went to medical school, was on the founding board of the emergency hospital that we know is Anne Arundel Medical Center. His name is William Bishop. And I happened to look over, and one of Jane's descendants is sitting back there in the back. Can you stand up, Moses? John Moses. Come on, John. Claim your family. This script was written by Joan Skurlock. She passed away some years ago and did an enormous amount of work on Charles Carroll's slaves. And I really miss her. We met and we'd start digging on stuff, and she'd say, okay, come on over to my house and bring these pictures. And we were working on this, the Four Women production. And we pull out pictures, and we both have the same picture of a family member. It was a hoot. And she was like, where did you get that? I'm like, where did you get that picture? Because we're so intertwined, so many family members. In terms of the bishops, there has been, if I'm not mistaken, family has been on the Anne Arundel Medical Center board for decades because of their commitment in the Bishop family. So it's a very interesting story. Like she said, if there's anything you want to know here, go back and check the records. When she talked about Maryland and Africa, what she was talking about was Liberia. As you know, Charles Carroll was involved with the movement for African Americans to go back to Africa. And Liberia was the place. Many of them died from malaria, many of them died until they moved it onto the coast, Monrovia. There was constant massacres by the natives, because of the different religion. And it's kind of hard to go back to Africa when you have no connection to Africa, because they were like, who are you people? I mean, you're not even black anymore. You're mixed with all these different folks. You're not a part of us. And that still stands today. The next woman you're going to meet is Ellen Burley Smith. Over the summer, the State Highway Administration gave a grant to Anne Arundel County. And that grant was to do archaeology straight up General's Highway. So they began at Belvoir. And while they were looking for the Revolutionary War artifacts, because everybody knows, Rochambeau came through there, what they did discover was the largest slave quarters in North America. 2 stories. Not 1 story, but 2 stories. The connection to Belvoir in Annapolis is almost seamless because of the people who live there. Upton Scott, he has Belvoir, and he also lives on Chicago Street. The Worthingtons, they have a home on Franklin, but they also own part of Belvoir. Belvoir was broken down into many plantations, so this fluid moving back and forth. Our families are back and forth, so it's very easy to see how a slave at Belvoir can come to Annapolis, especially if they fetch him like Jane used to be, and you find your soulmate here. So people who work there live here and they work here as well. So the story with Belvoir, this has been the most exciting find ever in Anne Arundel County. Right now, the State Highway Administration, they're doing pictures because it's going to be, what do you call it? When it's digital, what's the name for it? Coloring. they're gonna do a hologram to show the different rooms. You know, they've excavated all kinds of things, Civil War bayonets, pottery, you name it, everything. And it's an ongoing effort. But it's a very strong connection to the city of Annapolis because we live both places. So this woman is a part of that. Ellen comes from Belvoir. She's born at Belvoir. What is Belvoir? Belvoir was once a 6,000-acre plantation bounded by the South River on one end, the Severn River on another end, and you also had Maiden Deer Creek. Then it became little teeny parcels. But you can find our people living here in Annapolis. They are connected to Belvoir, and they all serve on Annapolis City Council, which is even more interesting. So this is how people like myself, who come from slave families who are not necessarily on the census, other than a number, we know our connections in the families because we're still there after slavery is over. So Ellen is going to tell you her story. Before Ellen comes out, I want to make a mention to you all. On February 16th on BET, I'm going to tell you this has to be the greatest story never told. It's called Book of Negroes. You want to see this. This is the story that we don't talk about. Imagine you're a slave that came from Africa to Annapolis, and you're with loyalists. True to the crown. The revolution breaks out and the loyalists decide they're going to leave this place. They go to New York, they all get on the boats, and they go to Nova Scotia. So these Africans who go to Nova Scotia are promised places to farm and this, that, and the other, and they're going to be free in New Brunswick, our sister city, Annapolis Royale. When they get there, the promises made were not promises kept. So let's go back from the beginning. I'm from Africa. I just came to the New World. Now I'm going with my slave owners who were loyalists. Now I'm going to Nova Scotia. And guess what? Because the promises, I'm on my way, I'm going real soon in the summer. Because the promises weren't kept, Admiral Cochrane said, guess what? I got a deal for you. Would you like to patriate a new colony since things are not going well for you here? And what is the colony that these people that came from Africa, that came to the New World, that went to Canada and go back to Africa? Does anybody know the name of the colony? No. Sierra Leone. So the names of the Negroes who went are in a book that's in the National Archives. So there's an author who wrote about this story. In Canada, it's called Book of Negroes. If you want to buy it here in America, because Back Creek Books has my book coming. I get all my books from Rock. Here in America, it's called Somebody Knows My Name. February 16th, you don't want to miss this because truly this is the greatest story never told. Never told. I've been writing little bits and pieces. When Ellen Moyer was mayor, I was on my way and I had pneumonia and I couldn't go. But Annapolis Royale is our sister city. So we have a lot of connections, a lot of family members, if you're royalists, whether you're slaves, that were on that path to Nova Scotia. So without further ado, is Ellen here? I think she is. Please enjoy Ellen Burley Smith, and we'll be happy to take any questions you have before we leave. Thank you.
Name's Ellen Burley. I was born in 1819, and here I stand in Annapolis, Acton Lane. It's where my family lives. Well, the part of the family that we came down to visit. My father is Thomas Burley. He's a free man. He married my mother, Ann. She was not a free woman. She belonged to Master Worthington Bryce, Master Bryce Worthington, out there in the 2nd District of Anne Arundel County, Crownsville. Now, when I was born and worked, I worked in Summer Hill, which was a neighboring plantation to Belvoir Manor. I remember those days fondly because there were a lot of horses and there was a lot of free space. And while I don't mind living in the city here in Acton where there's a community of folks that look just like me and we're all free, that's a fine thing. But there was something about being young in an open space. Anybody know that feeling? After your chores were done, you could get on about your business. You could ride horses without saddles. You could go hunting. You could go fishing. You could pick cranberries out of the marsh. When you're young, you don't understand the horrors of this slavery thing. I remember folks what came from way across the country to Crownsville to help them train their horses. Why, they were the prized horses. But they had these horse whisperers, see? Came from what was known as Mexico. Could talk to these horses and get them to do what they wanted to. There were a few children born to them folks too. Why, we were all manner of colors out there. Mulatto, slaves, Indians, Indian slave mix. Master Worthington were, as slave owners go, liberal. I'd use the word liberal. If the work were done, you were free to wander. But like any old man, he ages, and somebody's gonna take the place. And his son George was next in line. And, well, my mom would tell me that George was no Master Bryce he was. He didn't have the same affinity for the land. Master Bryce, he bought up Summer Hill. He had Belvoir. It was a sprawling landscape. Horses, that's what I miss. Didn't wear no corset. You could take your dresses and tie 'em up. Why, when I come to the town, I can tell I'm not the lady folks think I should be. I walk, I lumber. That's what my mama say. Stop lumbering. I can't help it now. I was born in the saddle. I miss it. I see horses racing up and down these streets right here, and I'm dying to get on one. I could go faster than any of these folks what I see out here racing. They just don't know. I used to come here to this Annapolis town long before my mama was free. She'd get liberty, and we'd come down here and visit our family. It's always a big out coming to Annapolis, coming to Acton Lane. Seeing all them fancy black folks all dressed up in their finery. City folks they were. Why can you imagine a young country girl like myself looking at all these prim and proper Negroes acting like they was gentry?